Welcome everyone to the virtual college fair for all Alaska students. Thank you so much for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions that happen this evening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at strivescan.com/Alaska. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website that you registered. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Daly, and I am the co-chair of a group called Private Colleges of California. We are a group of private, nonprofit, well-established colleges and universities here in California. We have about 20 member schools as part of our association, and we're very pleased to be meeting with you tonight to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions about private colleges. And so let's get started here. Just wanted to go over a little bit our agenda for this presentation. First, of course, we're going to be doing some introductions of our co-presenters and their respective institutions. And then we're going to go down a list of some common myths and misconceptions that many people have about private colleges and universities. Then we're going to switch into going over the admissions process to college, and then talking about different application platforms there are to apply to colleges. And then talking about different application plans. And then finally, we're going to leave some time for some questions and answers that you may have at the end. So let's get started here. First off, some introductions. We have Anna from University of Redlands. Hello, Anna.
Hi.
Then myself, Mike Daly, I'm representing University of the Pacific. And then we have Ashley representing Pomona College.
Hey.
So first off, I think we're going to let Anna introduce her school, University of Redlands.
Yes, good evening. Yes, my name is Anna Egeter, and I work with all the students that are interested in the University of Redlands from the state of Alaska. So if you're a senior looking to apply or thinking about applying, I'm the person to connect with. The University of Redlands is in Redlands, California, just east of the Los Angeles area, kind of halfway between Los Angeles and the Palm Springs area. We have about 2,400 undergraduate students with a really residentially focused campus. What that means is that most of our students live on campus, and we have a really vibrant campus community. We're a liberal arts and sciences university. We have 40 different programs of study and a wide range of disciplines, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of small colleges in a moment. And one thing I also want to mention is that we have a Redlands promise. We guarantee that a student is going to graduate in 4 years. As long as they're doing their part, we're going to do ours as well. And when we talk about the application process, it's always good to know that we use the common application and we're test optional.
Great, thank you. And then my institution, University of the Pacific, we are actually the home of the Pacific Tigers, as you'll see our mascot and logo up in the top corner there. And we're a private independent university that was founded in 1851, making us one of the oldest universities in the state of California. And we actually have 3 campuses. Our main campus, where all of our undergraduate programs are located, is in the city of Stockton in North Central California. Then we have some branch campuses in Sacramento and then also in San Francisco. We have about 3,600 undergraduate students at our main campus in Stockton, and we offer over 80 different academic programs that range widely from the arts and humanities to business to professional and pre-professional programs, as well as engineering and a number of other STEM majors. And our focus for our academic philosophy of instruction is going to be experiential learning. We give students a lot of opportunities starting from their freshman year to get highly engaged in the learning process through active participation in different research projects as well as internship programs. And so that will give them a really strong preparation for their future careers. Also, we do incorporate a lot of community engagement through all of our programs and encourage students to get actively involved in community service in our community. For sports fans, we are an NCAA Division I school, part of the West Coast Conference. And in terms of statistics, we have about a 66% acceptance rate. Some of the programs that we have are more selective than others, but overall about a 66% acceptance rate. And then starting fall 2021, we have gone test optional for both the SAT and the ACT test. So whether you have the test or are not able to take the test, you're not going to be at any disadvantage either in terms of acceptance to your program that you're applying for or to any merit scholarships that you may be eligible for. And then also we are a Common App school. So if you're planning to apply to any of the many schools throughout the country that accept the Common Application, we're an easy add-on to that list. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to Ashley.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here representing the smallest of the three schools. So Pomona College, we're located about 35 miles east of downtown Los Angeles, so in Los Angeles County, and we're about 1,700 undergraduates. We only serve undergraduates. We're in a town called Claremont, California, and one of our distinctive features is we're part of something called the Claremont Colleges, or the 5 Cs. And those 5 institutions are Pomona, founded in the late 1800s. We do a little bit of everything. And so we have 48 different majors that are available to students. About 42% of our students will major in the STEM fields. And then we have a vast array of other opportunities for students. Scripps College comes next. Scripps College is a women's college founded in the late 1920s. Claremont McKenna College, students are, about a third of their students major in econ, and a lot of their students are interested in things like business, banking, econ, and government. Harvey Mudd College is a STEM school. They have 9 majors, all of which are STEM, and it's for students who are really, really deeply passionate about STEM fields. And then Pitzer College was founded in the 60s. They're the youngest in the consortium, and really have an activist spirit to them. So big on social justice, environmentalism, sustainability, et cetera. There's about 6,000 students in the consortium. You're actually looking at all 5 colleges in this image here. And the great thing about it is you can actually take classes at all of the 5 schools. We have 2 different sports teams, 7 different dining halls. Everything kind of happens on the same loop, which is really nice. And it's all walking distance. So it's just like when you look outside of your house at the house across the street, that is literally how close the institutions are to each other, and really great opportunities to mingle across the 5 schools. We're incredibly diverse. Just over 50% of our students identify as domestic students of color, and another 12% as international students. About 23% of our students are from the lowest socioeconomic bracket in the country, and about 20% are also first generation. And then for financial aid, we just have really great financial aid policies. We are need blind, meet 100% need, and we package with no loans, and that includes for undocumented students. I look forward to speaking with you more.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's dive right into it. All of us, when we are going out and meeting prospective students, and also sometimes, a lot of times parents, the number one thing that we hear about the perception about private colleges and universities is that they're too expensive. It's natural to assume that that is the case because each of us, we have, compared to a lot of public universities, we have pretty large what we call sticker prices. And so naturally, when they see a large sticker price, they get that sticker shock feeling. But one of the things that I always tell everybody who first sees that sticker price is don't worry, and certainly don't get discouraged, because really nobody pays that sticker price. As you heard Ashley say, they have tremendous amount of financial aid. Our school, as well as University of Redlands, also we have some very rich financial aid packages that include scholarships, they include grants, they include work study, and last but not least, in some cases, they may include student loans if necessary to kind of close that gap between what a family can afford and what the net cost is going to be. So anyway, there are a lot of ways that a private university education can be as affordable, and in some cases even more affordable than going to a public university. But you never know what the actual cost is going to be until actually after you have applied to the schools that you have some interest in and find out what that financial aid offer is going to be. One of the ways that you can get kind of a sneak preview of what your net cost may be is by using what's called a net price calculator tool that most colleges and universities now have on their websites, usually in the financial aid section. And by putting in some basic information about some of your academic achievements like GPA, for example, as well as maybe some basic information about your family's income and expenses, you can get an estimate. It's certainly not a final answer, but it could be an estimate of what kind of financial aid you may be able to qualify if you apply and are accepted to that school. So again, use these tools and also look into the many different types of financial aid resources that could be possible for you. For example, University of the Pacific, we offer, just by simply applying, we offer up to $24,000 per year in merit scholarships alone, just simply based upon your applying and looking at your transcript. There are a number of also other scholarships that can be added to that merit scholarship from certain departments, as well as maybe even some private scholarships that you're able to get from your local area to add to the package. But in each case, and I think all three of us can say with some confidence here, that we have some really strong financial aid offices that work very closely with each individual family to make sure that all possible financial aid sources that can be found and given to you are definitely going to be reviewed extensively before a final offer is made and you receive your bill. So let me go a little bit further to talk a little bit about costs and kind of talk about the concept of time is money. When you're in university, every semester, every year that you're in university, you're spending money towards tuition fees, towards books, and also towards living expenses, especially if you're going to be living away from home, which is the case for most four-year university students. So in these two charts that you see here in the screen, we're comparing some comparable private California colleges to two of the public university systems that we have here in California. One is the Cal State University, or CSU, and the other is the University of California, or UC. So if you take a look at the four-year graduation rates from both private colleges that are comparable to Cal State's, the average four-year graduation rate is about 46%. Some are going to be significantly higher, like University of Redlands that has that four-year graduation guarantee. However, if we're taking a look at the average Cal State University, the four-year graduation rate is only 16%. And that doesn't mean that the students who go there are not really good students, are not dedicated students, but there are factors beyond their control and a lot of times that can hold them back from being able to graduate on time. That could be a factor of possibly the level and the ability of that university to be able to serve all of the different support needs of the students who go there in terms of academic advising, in terms of psychological advising, in terms of many other things that students may need help for during their time. Also, there is very commonly at a lot of public universities in California, as well as other states, there's the issue of impacted majors, meaning majors that have accepted more students than they have space capacity for. And so when you get into a situation like that, when you're an impacted major, that can often create a competitive class registration process where students will need to take certain classes in order to make good progress on their bachelor's degree program. But then there will be some students who aren't able to get into those classes that they need at that particular point in their program, thus slowing down their progress in earning their degree within a reasonable amount of time or within 4 years. So looking over at the chart on the right, we are comparing private colleges to some of our UC schools. And you see the UC schools have a much better four-year graduation rate of about 56% compared to their Cal State counterparts at 16. But still, if we're talking about comparable private universities, the four-year graduation rate is still significantly higher at 74%. So the sooner you're able to get done, the less money that you're likely going to be spending. And in the next slide, I'm going to do a little bit of a comparison of the cost to graduate. So let's say, for example, we have two sample universities. One is a private university and one is a public university. Both students are going to be enrolled in, let's say, their bachelor's degree program in business. Private university A, after all of the financial aid has been calculated and they're receiving the final bill, let's say the average or the annual out-of-pocket cost, the cost the family has to pay to go to that university is going to be about $20,000. But the four-year university has a really strong four-year graduation rate. So the total cost to receive a bachelor's degree from that particular university is going to be about $80,000. Certainly not a small amount of money. But let's take a look over here at the bachelor's degree program from the public university that has a much lower four-year graduation rate. So for a variety of reasons, maybe a lower sticker price and some good financial aid, the annual out-of-pocket cost is $16,000 compared to $20,000. So every year you're saving about $4,000. However, because of their low four-year graduation rate and the likelihood that you may not graduate within that 4 years, let's say it takes you 5 years to graduate. Well, that low annual cost just added up to the same as going to a 4-year, to a private university and graduating within 4 years. The difference is, of course, you're spending the same total amount of money, but if you go to public university B, it's going to take you an extra year to finish that bachelor's degree program, and that's one less year that you have to wait in order for you to start getting into that career that you had planned for yourself. So I'm going to switch over to Ashley.
Sure. So the second myth that we hear a lot is selectivity. There's a belief that private schools automatically are harder to get into. And that's not true. You'll see later on that we actually have a map of all of the private colleges and universities across the country. There's just such a variety of institutions. You can never make assumptions that all institutions are the same. So there's just a real range of selectivity across private colleges and universities. It's also just really important to note, I think institutions that accept less than 10% of their applicants get way too much attention. And actually the majority of institutions and the majority of students who are going off to college, university are attending schools that accept more than 50% of their applicants. And that is just really important piece. There's no one size fits all for private institutions, but also I think this is a really important piece. Admission selectivity is not a marker of the quality of education. Just because the school is harder to get into, that just means they have more applications. That does not mean that it is a better school for you, that it is a better fit for you and your family, whether that's financially or socially or academically. It does not mean that those bragging rights of being able to say you attend an institution with more selectivity means anything about what your future holds. That has not been proven by any of the research done in higher education, and that really shouldn't be the focus. What I like to tell students and families is that you will get into some colleges and you will be denied from some colleges, and neither of those things has anything to do with your self-worth. And so selectivity is absolutely a myth when thinking about private colleges.
Ashley used a great phrase a second ago called one size does not fit all. And that's also the case in terms of the size of a college and a university. And there are a wide range of college sizes and population sizes. And I think it's kind of fascinating to know that there is actually a college out there in Oregon that only has 14 students. Now, quite honestly, this is the extreme. And then there's also a large private college, Brigham Young University, that has over 30,000 students. So you have the whole range, just like you have the whole range of selectivity. But we hear often, especially when the three of us talked about the fact that our colleges, we're all on the smaller side of things, and we absolutely are, that there is such a range, or there's been a disadvantage in that sort of small size, when in reality, think about all of the opportunities that come with what sort of environment do you work best in? So Mike, next slide. So things to ask yourself is, what sort of classroom environment has been best for you? I would also add, what sort of social environment has been best for you? More than likely, for many of you, college is going to be larger than your high school. Now, not always the case. I'm sure that there are colleges that are, or high schools, excuse me, that are smaller than 2,400 or smaller than 1,700. And yet, think about, do you like being in a large class? Do you like being in a small class? Our average class size at Redlands is 18. And I know that my counterparts from the other institutions have similar smaller sizes, and even it's very common to have a class of maybe 6 or 7. Do you like that size, or actually do you not like that size? Those are really great questions to ask yourself. So it's somewhat of a Goldilocks. There's too big, there's too small, and there's kind of something that's just right. And what's right for you may not be right for your sibling or your best friend. And so thinking about size can really be helpful. But often we hear, well, you guys are too small, there's nothing there. When we're going to talk about academics in a second here, but also know that the social side of things, even if there's 30,000 people at BYU, one person does not all know 30,000. How many people do you know in your high school? How are you going to connect with your different classmates in different ways? A lot of times a smaller institution can actually give you some of those connection points, and you'll make those same connections at a larger institution as well. And yet you're going to kind of figure out what's best for you. A lot of times it will pop up more along the lines of your classroom environment. How do you want to connect with your classmates? How do you want to connect with your faculty members? Those sorts of things are really great questions to ask. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to myth number 4. Along with the perception of private colleges and universities being smaller is sometimes the misperception that because of the small size, there are limited academic choices or limited opportunities for research that you can get involved with at a smaller school. But however, the opposite is actually true. Smaller schools actually equal more opportunities for more students. And the reason for that is because there are smaller schools, there are smaller classes, and so there's more to go around for each person. If you were to go to your typical public university, especially at the first, second years where you're taking general education classes, then you're typically going to find a lot of classes that are 100, 300 students per class. And you can probably imagine in that kind of case, it's not going to be very easy for you to ask questions or get help or get to know your professor very well, or for your professor to get to know you very well. And you lose something in that. In a smaller school with smaller class sizes like each of us have, and that are very, very common at most private colleges, you're going to be able to not only have a good selection of academic programs to choose from, but also you're going to be able to connect with your fellow classmates and with your faculty in more frequent and deeper ways. And a lot of times the fact that you are more visible in a classroom of, let's say, 15 to 20 students, that means you're going to be able to connect for the opportunities that do come up. Faculty often have a lot of ongoing research on different subjects throughout the year that you're with them, and they look to the students in those classes that they know and help them connect with those research opportunities, or they may be very connected to the industry in which they're teaching their subject in, and they're in a good position to be able to help connect students with different internship opportunities as well as different first jobs that they may be looking for as soon as they graduate. So also, a lot of our smaller schools, like the ones that we have here tonight, there are a lot of different experiential learning opportunities that they offer, and even starting at the freshman level in many cases. At the larger universities, it's generally not encouraged, or at least there aren't very many opportunities for undergraduate students to get involved with internships and especially research at their undergraduate or they're early in their undergraduate studies. And the way of thinking is that, number one, people with, students with more experience or further along in their programs are going to be better parts of those research projects because they have more education and knowledge under their belt. However, we believe, or at least at University of the Pacific, we believe that in order to get to the level that you are looking for in competency in any particular subject area, that you need to start learning and applying your classroom knowledge at an earlier stage. And so again, there are more opportunities at a smaller school because there are fewer students who are looking to get involved with those opportunities. And that also kind of creates a collaborative learning environment versus a competitive one where there are many students trying to get after and get involved with the really good internship opportunities or the really good research opportunities. At a smaller school, you have often an environment where students are helping one another get connected with things that they know that they can benefit from and they can also get involved with. So definitely smaller schools equals more opportunities in terms of in terms of academic opportunities and research choices.
So this one comes up pretty often, the idea of name brand. So it might be easier to know the name of an institution. And so everyone in your neighborhood, everyone in your community might know the name of the local public school, the really great institutions that are around you. And they might not know the name of the school that you choose if you decide to go public. But there are three people who really know the names of our institutions. So graduate schools do know the names of lots of institutions all around the country, private and public, and that is their job to know, and they want to know about the education that you've had. They understand how it works, and they have specific questions about what you've been able to attain. So along with some of the other myths, and specifically what Mike was talking about around your academics, they'll know about the academic opportunities, but they also want to know how you've taken advantage of the times that you've had there. Employers, so just the idea that what you have learned, that you're going to go out and use that information to get a job. We all will have really strong career development offices, and they are going to help you. The faculty will help you figure out where you're going to go and work, and the internships and the research opportunities that you're going to do. Faculty are going to be really close to you at smaller institutions, because that's a huge part of why they decided to work at smaller institutions, and so that they can help you beyond just your 4 years in undergraduate, but in your undergraduate years, but also whenever you're applying to graduate schools or going off to work, or when you're doing internships and research opportunities later on. And then the career development offices, there's just lots of really great places and ways in which we are trying to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to be successful. So what we like to say is the people who need to know what school you went to, they will know. And it really is true. So I think you should choose an institution that fits you really well, that makes a lot of sense for who you want to be and how you want to grow as a person in your 4 years in undergrad, and recognize that those career development opportunities are going to be there no matter what institution you choose to go to.
So let's talk a little bit about the admissions process, and this will be pertainable to, quite honestly, a lot of different colleges. Before I get into that though, remember that we do have a Q&A session. There's a couple of questions already in there, and we're gonna have about 10, maybe 12 minutes worth of time for questions at the end. So absolutely put them in there and we'll address them as we're going along. But the admissions process for colleges is very different. You'll hear a lot of "it depends." But for many private institutions, we use what's called a holistic review, meaning that we look at your quantitative data, which would be your transcript, as well as your SAT or ACT scores, but know that many of us are test optional. And we'll also look at the qualitative data, those other things, that qualitative information about who are you, what are you involved in? We look at your writing, we look at the letters of recommendation. We take all of those different pieces and we are able to paint a really holistic picture, a whole picture of who you are. As I tell students, you are more than your GPA and you're more than your test score. You are applying for academic admission, so we're going to look at those items, but we take it all into context. You have each a unique story and unique something to tell, and holistic review really allows you to do that. So, question that I always encourage students to do before they start writing their application, if you've already started it, that's perfectly fine, but stop and ask yourself a question. What do you want me, if I was reading your application, what do you want Ashley or Mike to know when I finish reading it? Maybe there's 5 things, 5 words. I'll admit I can't remember 10 things, but if I could only remember 5, what would those be? And a good way to think about it is when you start writing a history paper, an English paper, you actually do the same thing. What are those 5 salient, really important points that you want to make sure you put forth in your paper? Your application is absolutely the same way. So in that admissions process, we know that it's daunting. We all know, very familiar, all of the different pieces of the common application that you might be struggling with or plotting your way through it, but know that the end result is you get to paint this really wonderful picture of who you are. Next slide, Mike. And so know that there are a variety of different application platforms. The Common Application is used by about 900 different colleges, and the 3 of us all use the Common Application. Both public and private universities use the Common App, as well as colleges outside the United States. So if you're looking at a college that uses the Common App, more than likely another college will do so as well. And so it's a great way to kind of knock out a number of different applications just with one application platform. Another platform that's very common is called the Coalition for College, or frequently just called the Coalition application. And it is another great platform that, again, multiple colleges will use, both public and private. And then also know that there's institutional applications. Some colleges will have a combination of all three of these. And so know that there's a variety of different ways to apply, as well as public institutions also often have shared platforms and things like that. But these are the two big ones, especially for private universities, as well as obviously institutional. And then as you look at the different application plans, there's a variety of them out there, and we're not going to talk about all 6 of them. But know that there's different dates and deadlines, and absolutely it can be confusing. So make sure that you read the fine print, and it's actually not even fine print. We all use very similar language so that we can avoid as much confusion as possible. The biggest confusing point that we often hear, though, is early decision versus early action. So I'll talk about those two. And those dates tend to be coming up pretty quickly. A lot of colleges have November deadlines or December or January deadlines, but a lot are focused in on the November timeframe. Early decision is the binding plan. You may hear that word binding as well. And what that means is that you found your school. You have found your number one place, and you are saying, this is it. So you're making a commitment. You're saying, if you admit me, I will enroll. Early decision is a great option, but not for everybody. So know that if you're making that commitment, there's a little bit extra that you need to think about of, are you ready to say, yes, this is my place? For some of you, you may be great and you know exactly what that is. For others, you might be waffling a little bit. And then think about maybe early action or regular decision is another good choice. Early action is also early, hence the word, but there's no binding part of things. And so know that you can apply early, find out early, but you're not committing in the same way. The confusing point is many of us have a combination of all of these. So keep that in mind. The other one I want to mention that gets also a little confusing sometimes is rolling admission. I don't believe any of the 3 of us use it, but it is a common one that you might find, which means that a student applies on a certain date and a few weeks later, they will find out their decision. So it rolls along kind of like tumbleweeds. The beauty of that is that if you apply rolling admission, you can find out as you go along. I will give a hint. Rolling admission colleges, sometimes it is the early bird catches the worm. And so keep that in mind. If you're looking at a place that's rolling, their final date might be in March, but it might be best to back that up and maybe apply in January, even earlier. And so know that as you're, keep going, Mike, as you're looking at different colleges, there are a really wide variety of places out there. We've just talked about private nonprofit colleges today. In the Peacock group, the Private Colleges of California, we actually have both 2-year and 4-year institutions. And as you can see from the map, colleges are everywhere. And even in the state of Alaska, I know that University of Alaska Anchorage, as well as Alaska Fairbanks are great opportunities, and you're a public flagship universities in the state, but you also do have nonprofit institutions that are private. And I think I would encourage you to expand, learn a little bit more about who we all are, and take advantage of just learning about something a little bit different as you're going along. So we'd love to have some time to answer some questions. Again, any of the 3 of us can answer them. And I will start off just because there was one question in here about WUI. The Western University Exchange is the question, and also sometimes called WUI. And the short answer is we are not. So WUI is a great program in the 14 Western states, including Alaska, but they are for public institutions. And so if you're looking at an out-of-state public, they may have WUI, but private institutions don't. But as Mike mentioned, and when you're talking about finances, often we are able to offer maybe substantially more scholarships. We are able to put more financial institutional resources towards colleges. And so often we find that a WUI college or a WUI scholarship and an institutional scholarship from a place like one of the 3 of us is going to find it's actually pretty darn comparable. So that net price calculator that Mike mentioned is a great tool. Every college is required by law to have it on their website. And so do a little bit of digging, find that, put in some data, and you can really, I think, find some great information. But I will also put a plug in for WUI. WUI is a great choice as well if you're looking at those 14 Western states. So if somebody wants to answer the other question about film, So do any colleges, do any of you have film programs? Mike or Ashley?
Yeah, we actually have not a film program per se, but we do have a really, we have a new and very, very dynamic program called Media X, which does incorporate a lot of elements of TV and film, but it also incorporates elements of graphic design and special effects that are put into visual communications, both online and offline. It also incorporates elements of theater, graphic design, marketing, and all of the other different elements that go into making visual communications. And so it's a program that's designed to help students both now who are interested in doing different types of visual communications, but also prepare them for the future of visual communications, whatever format that they may end up taking in the future.
And at Pomona and actually across the Claremont colleges, we have something called media studies. And so you are, an aspect of that is absolutely film studies, but it is not training you to be a director if that was a path that you were specifically interested in. So it is more the study of media mediums as opposed to the use of it. If you wanted to go the director route, we get asked that a lot because we're in Los Angeles. So.
And we have a similar program, I think, to the two we call our media and visual culture studies. It's probably a little bit more philosophical and application-based than a film sort of program, but a great example of how you can just research in on different sorts of programs. And film's a good example that it's going to come in a couple of different titles, probably. So. Other questions?
I would also like to make one additional note to what Anna had mentioned earlier about cost and WUI and so forth. A lot of people think, especially a lot of people from outside of California, think that they are absolutely required to pay out-of-state tuition fees. However, as private universities, we don't make a distinction between out-of-state and in-state or international, any other status. Our stated sticker price or tuition prices are the same whether you're an in-state student or an out-of-state student. And so we have virtually the same amount of financial aid that is available to students, whether they are residents of California or not. The only difference would be possibly in the form of Cal Grants, which are for California state residents.
Well, with that, we'd like to thank you for coming this evening, but let's maybe each end with kind of a final word of wisdom. I know that there probably is a combination of seniors as well as sophomores or juniors in the room, but what words of advice can we give? I'll start off by saying, seniors, pay attention to deadlines. I know it seems like a really boring tip to give, but I really hit home that deadlines are kind of the first thing that you need to meet. And so keeping that in mind, keep those deadlines, keep your calendar figured out, and also know that as you press that submit button, celebrate it. We really celebrate often, and we see all those lovely YouTube videos about when you find out if you're admitted or not, but don't forget to celebrate the pressing the submission button. You applied to college, and that is also a milestone to recognize.
I would say, oh, I had it, and then I was excited about celebrating, and then I forgot it. Yes, so I think in the application process, just use it as a moment for self-reflection as well. I recognize that it can feel really intense, that you have to check all of the boxes, make sure everything is perfect, but also just recognize that writing your essays and submitting a little bit of yourself and bits of your life out to colleges is a real time for you to reflect on who have you been in the last 17, 18, 19 years. And also, who do you anticipate that you're going to be? At institutions, you have real opportunities to have an impact on the institution, on your fellow classmates, on professors, on staff. Like you matter, and you do in the admissions process as well. All of us are in admissions because we really care about access for students, and we want to make sure that students are able to find a good home for themselves. And we all have stories of essays and applicants that have really just touched us and moved us and really made us even into better people. And so just know that that moment of self-reflection that you're taking in this process, that matters, and that is meaningful.
I would probably close by saying or recommending that no matter what stage you're at in your college search for the right school for yourself, is you're going to be looking at a number of different choices. And I think one of the best ways to find out the questions, or find out the answers to your question rather, is to contact the schools and particularly the admissions counselors for your region directly about those questions that you have, and to find out the answers about the academic programs, the student life, the housing, the local area, and also as a resource for helping you get connected to other people at the university who may be in a really good position to go even deeper into those questions that you're most wondering about. It really is a joy for me, and I think I speak for everybody here in the room, that we really enjoy the process of going along with students on their journey of researching and then applying and then getting accepted and then making that all-important enrollment decision. We really love and enjoy that process of seeing the students find, which college or which school is going to be their right choice, and helping them get started on that very important journey to the next stage in their life. And never be afraid of asking dumb questions. There is no dumb question in my book. I really enjoy being able to connect with students at any opportunity I can to help you feel easier and more confident about your application research and application process.
I think with that, bid you farewell. I think there's a couple of follow-up things that the college fair coordinator wanted to relay to you, but I know that we had a great time talking with you this evening, and hopefully that was a helpful presentation to learn a little bit more. And actually another question came in. Oh, just some thank yous. So thank you so much as well. So we like thank yous as well.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to check out all the sessions that were available this evening at strivescan.com/Alaska. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all the other sessions recordings at the same website where you registered. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Good night, guys. Thank you.